All right. Um, Today is going to be a pretty direct lecture. Today we're going to pick up on Module 12, which is dealing with saving data to files. I'm going to introduce you to an additional concept, and then I'm going to spend a little bit of time going over the two options for Assignment 12. So you can pick one of them. You're always welcome to do both for an extra challenge, but for credit, you only need to pick one or the other. So I'm going to go over both of them, and then you can choose which one sounds more interesting to you, or which one sounds like something that is uh, more like what you want to spend your time working on. So there's some agency there for you. So first, I want to talk about storing complex data. Now, last time, if you remember, what we talked about was how to open a file for reading, writing, etc., and then how to take that string data and push it out to the file. And then we talked about how to read that back from the file and use that for something in our programs. And that's good. It's useful, but it is somewhat limiting because when we can just read and write a simple string from a file, it kind of limits what we can do. For example, if we have a piece of data that looks like this, right? If you look at that, what you'll recognize is that li names is a list, and that list contains 3 dictionary objects that define a first name and a last name. I cannot save this directly to a text file using the method that we talked about. So if I say my file equals open new file dot text for writing, and then I say my file dot write, and then I give it li names. Let's see what happens. Okay, it's going to give me an error right away. It's not even going to try to do what I asked it to do, which is, just save that, right? And, what you might think that would happen is something similar to what you would get if you just print this. So if I print li names, right, it's going to give me a long string of text, but it's a list that has dictionaries. And like you might have it in your mind that if I want to save that to a file, that it'll just save something to that text file that looks like this, and then I can just read it back. Well, that would be nice, but it doesn't work because writing to a text file requires a string, not even an integer or a Boolean or any other data type will work, only a string. So if I wanted to save this to a text file using just what we've learned so far, there's a way to do it. Okay, so let's take this, and what I have to do is take this list that contains dictionaries, and I have to turn it into a string that I can save to a text file, and then that I can decode later. So how would I do that? Well, I'd have to go through each of the records or each of the members of that list. So I need to go through each of these dictionaries here first. And I would say for DI names in LI names. Let's do that. So I could go through and print each one of those, right? And if I do that, I'm printing each. Left that there, gave me an error. I'll run it again. I'm printing each of those dictionaries. So I have to go through and I have to take each one of these things apart and do something else to it. So now for each dictionary, I'm going to go for each key. For key in DI name, I'm going to start out with a string right, and I'm going to make an empty string here like this. So for each key, I'm going to str right, and then I'm going to say plus equals. I'm going to add, just to make sure that it's a string, I'm going to add the key like this as an F string. And I'm going to say plus equals. And I'm going to say that. Why am I using that? Plus equals. Oops. I don't need plus equals again. There we go. Why am I saying this? Because I'm going to use that character, that pipe character, as a separator. And then I'm going to say plus, and I'm going to say DI name key plus, and then I'm going to give that 2 pipe characters. So watch now what happens. And then I'm going to go back up to here, and I'm going to say after each set, after it goes through each one of these, I'm going to have it add something else. str right plus equals. I'm going to use 3 pipe characters. What am I doing? What's the deal with this? So when I finish all of that, let's print this weird string that I've put together. So if I run through there, now I've created something a little more interesting, right? But there's a pattern here that I've created. So you can see where this dictionary data is represented. First name, last name, I've separated those by 2. These end up being separated by 5. So I can take this string now and I can write it to the text file. And then when I read that text file, I have to back out of that. So I'm going to say li names equals, or let's just say this, li1 equals, I'm going to say str right dot split, and I'm going to split wherever there are 5 of those. For str text in li1, I'm going to split that apart and print them so you can see what I'm doing. str text. Okay, so I create that string in that first part, and then on the second part, I'm breaking it up. I'm using this set of 5 to split it. And now you can see I'm splitting it back out into records. Then I have to take each one of those and put it into a dictionary just to get back to this main data structure that all I wanted to do was save. So saving and reading, and then if the data structure changes at all, if I add, let's say, an age to each person in that list, then I have to do another thing to make sure that it's reading and writing correctly. It's a huge pain. It's not impossible, but it's a pain, and it's also very processor intensive. It takes a lot more work on the part of the computer. So you can imagine if you're doing this a million times a minute, it's going to cost you. So